Afternoon, and let us start with today's sessions. If you remember, we started with the models last time, and we studied the Kirkpatrick model, and I talked a little about the Mark Easterby Smith model, but that is a little obsolete, and people generally combine it with other models and then use it. And Kirkpatrick's model is also used by combining with other models, and that is by far the most popular. Then we talked about another model. As if you remember, Kirkpatrick has four levels: the reaction level and learning level, then job behavior level, and then the result level. Then we talked about another model, that is the Cairo model, and I think somewhere in between we couldn't finish it. So I will just quickly go through the things again, and then we will move on to the ROI model. Hmm? And I think I was sharing an example with you for the Cairo model, but let us see it again and then share the example. So I'm just sharing the screen with you now, and we will pick up from wherever we left last time. Mhm. So if you remember, there are four levels again in the Kairos model. He calls it context evaluation, input evaluation, reaction evaluation, and output or outcome. Mostly people call it outcome. In some of the books, you may find it as output. The context evaluation actually assesses the operational situation. What we do in this is another name for training needs analysis. You had if you remember, we had started with a systematic approach to training in the first session, and the training needs analysis was the first stage. So context evaluation actually is the training needs analysis, and the objective is to identify the training needs and frame some objectives for the training, to formulate objectives for the training that is to be given. And what you get after the training needs analysis is list of factors which will impact training effectiveness, how which training should be taken, how the training should be given. This is to be identified. And the another thing that it identifies is the gaps. If you remember the first few sessions, we talked about a gap in performance. There's a desired level of performance and the level which is currently available in the organization on which people are working. So this gap is to be filled up through the training needs analysis. And in this stage of the model, we assess that. And the needs here are identified at three levels. They call it the ultimate objective. That is what is actually the problem, the performance problem. It could be anything like low sales, low productivity, too many complaints from the customers, and so on. So what is actually organizational goal? It is not just one goal that would be there. There will be number of goals, and out of that you choose one goal which is specific, and you specifically want to address that problem. Then the other level after that is the intermediate level. See the change in the employee's work, like how he is performing now and what you desire that he should learn. uh, Actually, if you look at it closely, you will be able to align it with the levels at which training needs analysis is done, except that the names, the nomenclature or the taxonomy is a little different. And is so that is the organizational level, ultimate objective. Job performance level is the intermediate objectives, and immediate objectives are the small tasks which require in the work which is being performed by the person, the micro level thing. So immediate objectives is the acquiring new skills and knowledge as a result of the training or changing the employees' attitudes and then behavior. So then the second level in the Cairo model is the input evaluation. Now here what we do is we try to choose which kind of training would be best suitable and which methods and techniques would be best suitable. For example, if it is a machine training, then maybe shop floor would be the best place to train, and calling the experts and doing it there. Whether it should be a classroom training which does not, where the person is not bothered about the day to day problems in the organization, and he can devote some time to his increase in his knowledge, where maybe some conceptual knowledge is required for the employee. And here you also evaluate the design and planning and management and delivery of the training course. How it should be designed, what should be the sequence, how long it should be, and who will manage it, whether it is to be done at the organization level or it can be given it to an expert, maybe a training institution, and how it should be delivered. So these are the things that we think about in the input evaluation. And then analyze the organization's resources. What is our budget? Can we spare people for 5 days? Can we spare people for 2 days? How best can we achieve the desired objectives? How to do that? How to go about it? So this is what is analyzed here. And then we have something called the reaction evaluation, that is another level. So we have chosen the best training that we thought, which was efficient as well as effective. It will be able to reach the desired level of performance. Plus, it is saving us a lot of money if out of say 12, 12 or 13, we have chosen just one because it was cost effective and it was giving us what we wanted. Now is the time to collect the views and suggestions of the participants, and how the training was. And the generally, if you make a questionnaire for this level, you will frame questions on how was the program content, was it useful for your training or not, and how far did it satisfy the objectives we started with. And such questions would be there on program content. Then how was the approach? Was it boring? Was it interesting? Did it involve participants participation also, or was it just trainer centered? Was it participant centered? What kind of methodology was used? These things are to be asked in the approach. Was the methodology suitable or not? Then what is the value added? In fact, you might be wondering whether this is the ultimate question that should be asked. And yes, what value addition has happened? And you can have a pre-training test or pre-training questionnaire, and have a post-training questionnaire to elicit that, to measure that what value addition has happened to the participants. So the information is used to find ways to improve the training program. Now the focus on this level is to how to make the training better. So that is what happens in this level. Then we have the ultimate level in this, and that is the outcome level. In the outcome level, uh, again, the results of the training are elicited. Analysis is done based upon the questionnaires that you have given, information collected, analyzed, and then what we do is we present it at 3 different levels in the outcome level. Whatever data you have collected, the analysis is done on that, and then you show it at 3 levels. One is the immediate level. The training was good, and you collect all the questionnaires from different trainings or different batches that people have gone through, and whatever immediately they gave, how the trainings got on and whether they managed to complete the training successfully or not. Was it too easy for them? Was it too difficult? Could how much percent could they retain from the training, and how much percent can they apply to the job? Then intermediate, that would be done after some time. Like, it is not immediately done. Based upon the inputs that you get from the immediate reaction or results that you have analyzed, what changes you require for the course design, and or do you need some other training resource? Was this training not good enough? And then the ultimate level is, was our problem that we started with, has that been satisfied? We started probably with the low sales, so have we been able to increase our sales? And uh, has the organization performed over the years better when we started with the training, say in 2 years ago? How is it doing now? So outcomes can be measured at the learner level and the workplace level, the team or departmental level, and the business level. So you can see very well that the concept of this model is assessing the outcomes at all the levels, like the reaction also, the job behavior also, and ultimately what is the gain in the business for the organization. So let us see it with an example. And this is software company, and what do they do is they have a management software, maybe a learning management system or something. They have a management software and their sales are low. The problem they have is a low sales. And what do they want? They are looking for ways to boost their sales. Now they decide to use the Cairo model, and they develop their plans, set their goals, and choose the right training course. So how will they apply the Cairo model? It's given very briefly, but you will get an idea, because it is not possible to do the whole Cairo evaluation in just one session, tell you about that. So I will just give you an example. In the context evaluation, that is the first level of the Cairo model, determine the training objectives that help the company meet its goal of improving sales. So they have identified the problem. The Today, the set of salesmen are, or the company is selling, say, 2000 software items every month, but they want it to rise up to 5000. So there is a gap, and how to boost that sale, that is their problem, and their goal is improving the sales. So they will try to determine whether at the organizational level there's a problem, or whether at the intermediate level, whether the staff needs to do uh, something more, do they need some other inputs, and then where do they require this input. So to identify the lack of product knowledge of the sales team, they will try, their ultimate objective will be to improve software sales. Intermediate objective will be to encourage sales staff to research the latest software updates and developments. And immediate objectives would be to boost product knowledge among sales team members. So if there is something available, then to try to do that, and they will try to find out the means, etc. And here they will try to find out where they are lacking the knowledge. At intermediate level, they will try to see whether the sales staff can do research and get some developments done. That is at the job level, the whole job. And this is definitely at the organizational level. Now at the stage 2, that is the input evaluation, they will analyze various training courses that are available online or maybe classroom, and they weigh up the cost and length of each one. Like, how long can we spare our participants? Can we send them, or is it an online? If they're doing this training, that means they would not be involved in production and coding and all that. So what is the cost of that? And they will determine which course would be best, and what are the desired objectives, whether it is matching their objectives. They started with, say, some knowledge input has to be there in coding in a particular software. Does the training course provide that? So based on their budgetary constraints and other requirements, they will try to find the best course. That is the input evaluation stage. In the stage 3, that is the reaction evaluation, they have finished the training, they chose the best training, and the sales team was sent to the training, and now the members are given a questionnaire. Now, whoever has done the training, to find out how the training went on, and data from this evaluation would be used to help the company decide whether the training offered value for money and what changes may be made for future training sessions. Like, do they require something else? Do they need to contact the training institute so that this can be handled better in the future? Whether the conditions for learning were present in the training, like was the atmosphere there, was it threatening or something? Hmm? So they will look at that also. Now stage 4 comes, and that is the outcome. In this, the learning and its impact on the employee's work is to be tested, and the questions they would ask is what happened as a direct result of the training. Like, they will try to separate it from other factors, and what happened as a direct result of the training, and whether the managers were implementing the tools and techniques they learned during their working hours. And senior managers would investigate an organization's revenue to see whether the sales figure had improved. Hmm? So whether that there was a jump in the sale, their graphs will show. Managers would present results from this training to determine whether the ultimate level, intermediate, and immediate goals were met. So this is what is done in brief in the Kairos model. Let us look at another model, friends, now, that is called the return on investment model, and it is becoming very popular nowadays. Although it is a little tough, it actually, if you look at it, you will find similarities with the Kirkpatrick model. And in fact, the 4 levels of Kirkpatrick are also repeated in this with slight variations. I will keep on telling you where the variation lies. And the return on investment model is actually would be the ultimate if the organizations are able to do it, and they are able to calculate return on investment. I will do it in 2 parts. First, we will look at the model itself, and then I will put give some time to the process also, how return on investment is calculated. So we will look at it in 2 ways. So first, let us have a look at the model itself. It is by Jack J. Phillips, and he first time published this model in his book, which is Return on Investment in Training and Performance Improvement Programs. And it is actually an improvement or additional level to the Kirkpatrick model. If you remember, Kirkpatrick gave us 4 levels, and he gave us another level which is called the 5th level, or the return on investment level. So that is what he gave us. Now, in level 1, like the Kirkpatrick model, it is the reaction level, even in this model, and evaluating the participants' reaction to the training they received. So here, short questionnaires or surveys are used to collect data about what people thought about their training. Assess whether the conditions necessary for learning were in place. Now, the question might be cropping up in your minds, are we using it before the training also? The answer to that is yes, you can. And generally, it is the post-training reaction that we take. But definitely, you need to have something to match with the situation before the training began. So then you can have something to compare it with. And the level 2 is then the learning level, and it evaluates whether learning took place or not. And this is actually exactly the same as the Kirkpatrick model, and usually entails giving the participants tests or quizzes before and after the training. And again, there could be formative assessments or summative assessments here. And even the feedback counts here. So whether the learning taking place or not, whether the training is going in the right direction or not, and that is the day-to-day thing. What I mean is, like, even in a micro session, there could be learning happening or measurement being done whether the learning is happening or not. Then level 3 is the application and implementation level. The Kirkpatrick level calls it the job behavior level. So application and implementation determines whether the issue lay with the application of the learning or with its implementation. If there's a problem, there's no transfer of learning going on, then this model gives a little extension to the level 3 of the Kirkpatrick, and it says determine whether the issue lay with the application of the learning or with its implementation. This is necessarily at the job behavior level, the level 3, and the name is application and implementation. There is a little difference in level 3 of Kirkpatrick and Phillips models. If you remember, Kirkpatrick just measured the learning, assessed only whether the participants were using what they learned, and here there is a little extension. So level 3 of the Kirkpatrick model, KM stands here for Kirkpatrick model, and KM looks at workplace behavior and assesses whether participants are using what they learned on the job. And actually people were criticizing the Kirkpatrick model, and they were saying you can't get enough data which tells you that training has improved the work performance, and it simply tells you whether the training was put into practice or not. But the Jack Phillips model Jack Phillips felt that this level could be improved, so he expanded it to cover both application and implementation in this. Actually, the Phillips model or the ROI model makes it far easier to see why training does or doesn't translate into workplace changes. So it tells the participants, whether it is the management, the organization, and the participants, whether the training was, the improvement was because of the training or something else, or whether if it is not translating into the transfer of learning, it is not happening, then can it be attributed to the training or something else? So if there is a problem, the ROI model helps us to determine whether the issue lay with the application of the learning, whether the people who learned something and then they could not apply it in the organization. For example, they were trained on something, some software, but this software was different in the training institution, and the organization had not purchased that kind of software. They had an older version, so they could not apply the learning there. That could be a problem, and or with its implementation. So this subtle but crucial difference can prove extremely helpful for organizations. So this is a little different. For example, there's an example in front of you for level 3 differentiation between Phillips and Kirkpatrick model. Employees in a factory receive a training to operate a new type of equipment. Okay. Now the Phillips model level 2 evaluation gives you that the training was successful. There was a very glowing test, that percentage of marks that people got in the tests, and they were doing it very well. But the level 3 evaluation shows that the employees are not using their new skills and knowledge. Although they passed the training with flying colors, but what happened? this is not clear to the organizational people. Now, a Kirkpatrick level 3 evaluation would simply tell you that the training wasn't being implemented. But a Phillips ROI model level 3 evaluation would show you more about where the problem lies. For instance, the employee could be able to operate the new machines, but are faced with a problem that prevents them from implementing it, such as the machines being faulty or inoperable. They could not implement it because the machine itself was faulty. There was some fault in the machine. So that is a non-training intervention. So actually at level 3, the ROI model gives you two things. Like you can identify whether the application is happening or not of the learning. The participant is ready to do that. But in implementation, whether really that is being translated into it or not. So this can also be identified. And that is a non-training intervention, whether there is a training intervention responsible or a non-training intervention which is responsible for not transferring of learning. So now the fourth level is called the impact level in ROI model. And this is the same actually as the results model. Of course, there will be minor changes. While the fourth level of the Kirkpatrick model is purely focusing on results. But the Phillips ROI model is much broader and it looks at the impact of the training on the organization. What really is the impact of the training on the organization? This helps identify whether factors other than training were responsible for delivering the outcomes. And this represents a substantial improvement over the Kirkpatrick model, as it allows you to see whether factors such as sales data, weather, or supply issues were responsible for changes in performance metrics. When I was discussing Kirkpatrick model and Cairo model, I said there are hierarchical models. Like inputs given in the first few levels, the really have a effect on the later levels. This is true for the ROI model also. In fact, it should be step by step, like all the levels should be done. Only then you get a clear picture. You can't just jump into the level 4 and do it. Of course, if you're doing evaluation at different levels, you will be using different instruments and different people may be doing it. But the results and the information collected from each level will form the basis for activities in the next level. So we come to the ultimate level in the ROI model, which has been an additional level over the Kirkpatrick model. And unlike the Kirkpatrick taxonomy that simply measures training results against stakeholder expectations. So that is a return on expectation actually that we do with the Kirkpatrick model. Here the Phillips model has a fifth level and it doesn't stop there. It is designed to measure the return on investment. This level uses cost benefit analysis to determine the value of training programs. It helps companies measure whether the money they invested in the training has produced measurable returns, and if so, what they are. So you will see here there will be a lot of calculation that is being done. And in this level, you will see that many items are converted into their monetary value. So that is what the ROI model entails. Now, ROI can be calculated by following a 7-stage process. The first step 1 is to collect pre-programmed data on performance and collect post-programmed data on performance. Then step 3 is isolate the effects of training from other positive and negative performance influencers and convert the data into a monetary value. How much actual value is the change worth to the organization? Then step 5 is calculate the costs of delivering the training program. Then step 6 is to calculate the return on investment. That is if you have the cost and if you have been able to identify the benefits, what is their ratio? And step 7 says, if there are some other factors which cannot be counted or converted into monetary value, identify them and list them. That is what the ROE model is for. So I'm not closing my session. This was actually divided into two parts. So that is why you're seeing a thank you slide. I will now move you on to the return on investment process. How do we actually calculate the ROI? And so let us see that first. And just give me a few minutes to do that. So this is a new thing actually, at least in Indian scenario. I don't think many organizations are doing it, but this is the answer to many of the problems on evaluation. And actually this is the ideal way that we should adopt. Although some organizations are doing the level 4 evaluation also, and even the government is doing it in the Kirkpatrick level, but return on investment is still not thought of. Actually in government programs it is unthinkable probably, because the intangible benefits are much more than the other benefits. So if you remember, we had it like this. And the level 1, that is reaction and plan development in the ROI framework. It measures the participants' reaction to program and outlines specific plans for implementation. So you see, we have started with the reaction only here. And then the level 2, that is the learning level, that is measuring the skills, knowledge, or attitude changes. Then level 3 is the job applications. And here we measure the change in behavior on the job and application of training material. If you remember, we discussed some of the methods of obtaining information for all these things in one of the sessions earlier. So the next level is the business result level in ROI framework, and we call it for measuring impact on the business. What is actually the impact? If you go from reaction level to the lower levels, excuse me, you will see that the time frame required is much more. The reaction is almost immediate. As soon as the training program is over, or even during the training, you can get quick reactions. Whether the learning has happened or not, you need better instruments, and it takes a little time. Like you will have to administer a test. Of course, it will also be giving you immediate results for that, depending upon the speed of your analysis. So reaction 1 and reaction 2 give you immediate results. They give you immediate analysis. But if you go to the next level, it takes time. And business results, impact on the business will take even more time to analyze. And like sizable workforce should be ready to with the training. Only then you can do the impact on business. Then the return on investment, that is the ultimate level in the 5-level ROI framework, and it measures the monetary value of the results and costs for program, and that is expressed as percentage. The monetary value is expressed as percentage. If you look on the net, if you Google, organizations who are experts in doing it, and they have their surveys, their ways that is available online also. If an organization purchases their work, they do it for them, and they have ways to convert everything into monetary value, almost everything. Of course, you can't convert everything into monetary value, and then express this as a percentage. What I'm talking here is a broad thing, like I'm giving you only an outline. The detailed work would be much more. Now, level 5 measurements, what does it include? Actually, it includes comparing the monetary benefits from the program with its costs. So you make a ratio of the benefits you get over the costs, and that tells you, and it can be given as a percentage, that is a cost benefit ratio, and that gives you as a percentage. And evaluation cycle is not complete until level 5 is done. So that is the condition in the ROI model. You have to go through all the levels, and it should be level 5 must be done, otherwise it is not complete. This level 5 measurement is a bit difficult and expensive process, and evaluation on other levels should precede this one. If you're not doing correct evaluation on the earlier levels, your results will not be correct even at the 5 level 5. The instruments that you use should be accurate at other levels, and they should be able to give you accurate information. Only then your analysis and your work that you do at the level 5 will be useful. And that is very important here. Soon we will see step by step how do we do it. Let us look at the ROI process. So the first thing that it requires, the ROI process requires, is collecting preliminary evaluation information. Some information that you require even before starting the ROI process. So I'm just repeating the steps that I told you earlier, so that you are able to connect with them. The first step will be to collect pre-programmed data on performance and or skill levels. So before even the program starts, you must have data. Need not to say that training needs analysis will help you a lot in this. What is the current level of performance of the participants? What is their knowledge level? What skills do they require? These are to be listed. And these, you need instruments for this also. You need to create questionnaires and surveys to elicit this information, to obtain this information, and then you need to organize. If you look at all the steps, actually it is quite possible that different set of people will be doing things at different steps. It is quite possible. And if it is a very small organization, then yes, all the steps can be done by one set of people. But generally, if it is a big organization, then maybe you will depend upon other people who will be collecting data at step 1. Then step 2 will be to collect post-program data. That is the reaction that you get and how the performance has improved. Not just the reaction, but at the job level also. What is the increase in performance? And if you remember, we discussed some of the instruments earlier. Observation, interview, questionnaires, tests you can do to collect such an information. And step 3 will be isolate the effects of training from other positive and negative performance influencers. May be affecting, but can we really isolate the effects of the training? And that is very important for this ROI calculation. Otherwise, the ROI calculation will be just a waste. Then step 4 is converting the data into a monetary value. So you're getting some data from step 1, 2, 3. And now what you will do, you will convert it into a monetary value. That is a tedious job, but then you have to learn how to convert it, and you have to keep the things like that. How much actual value is the change worth to the organization? And step 5 is to calculate the costs of delivering the training program. And I wouldn't go into the details of converting the data into a monetary value in deep, because that is an expert domain. That is another domain which requires a lot of expertise. So, but other things we will discuss. Calculate the costs of delivering the training program. That list has to be done. And then step 6 is calculate the return on investment. And the step 7 is identify and the list of intangible benefits. There will be other benefits also coming out of the training. You must list them also. We shouldn't forget about them. So actually the purpose for which you're doing the evaluation, uh, that you have to start with that in the mind. What is my purpose? Why I'm doing this evaluation? And of course, the choice of all the models, you can choose the ROI model also, but the choice of the purpose will tell you what is the scope of evaluation. Should I do it at level 1, 2, 3, or 5, whatever? And the types of instruments you use, that will also determine the purpose will determine that. The purpose will also determine what kind of data do you want to collect, and what method should you choose to collect the data. So this we have to keep in mind before doing collecting um, data. And mostly the evaluation instruments that are recommended are surveys, questionnaires, interviews, focus groups, tests, observation, performance records. You must be already aware of all of them. Focus groups are groups that are focused on a specific problem or a specific task or a specific uh, skill. Hmm? So you can make focus groups on anything that would be focusing on that. It could be a goal also. Hmm? So that is there. So these are the evaluation instruments used for converting or using the ROI framework, the 7 steps. Now there are different levels, and level 1 is measuring reaction and identifying the planned actions. Level 2 is measuring learning. Level 3 is assessing application of the program on the job. Level 4 is identifying the business results from the program, and ultimately calculating the return on investment. And how, what is more important here is also timing of the data collection. So type of instrument that you're using, timing of the what the level is where you are doing it, and timing of the data collection. Is it before the training or is it after the training? Is it done multiple times, like in between also, in at job also, when the participant returned, after 2 months, after 3 months, after 6 months, or 5 years, etc., as suitable. Huh? So this is timing is also very important in this. So this is the ROI process model actually, and how we go about it is, first we collect the data. That was the first step. And in this data collection, I was talking about the evaluation instruments, and I showed you an earlier slide in which the types of instruments that you would be choosing, you have to look at your purpose and then choose. Evaluation purpose also determines what kind of data you will collect, how will you collect, and all that. Then timing also, is it being done after 3 months of the course or 5 years of the training, when a full workforce is ready with the training, they have been equipped with all the knowledge and skills. So, and the evaluation levels where you want to do the evaluation. So in the ROI process model, collection of data, whichever level you are doing it, you will follow these steps. So isolate the effects of the training, then you will isolate the effects of the training, and then convert the data to monetary value and calculate the return on investment. But actually what you will get, you will tabulate the program cost to make it more organized. And you will also convert the data into monetary value, and then identify the intangible benefits. And the ultimate thing is to calculate the ROI. How it is done, we will have a look at it. Collection of accurate data. Collection of data is the first step, and collection of accurate data and useful data forms the very basis. Your data, if your data is not correct, all the ROI calculations are going to be wrong. So you must be very careful here. Collection both prior to and after the training is very important. So Now the data is of two kinds, hard data and soft data. You might be aware of this only, but I'm just re-emphasizing this. Hard data implies data that is directly measurable, factual and indisputable. Like these were the objectives. So many participants passed the test. So many participants have been trained, and like that. And soft data implies data that has been collected from qualitative observations. His performance has improved. Earlier, he used to behave like that, but now behavior changes. This, his knowledge has increased, skill has increased. That doesn't mean that such a data is unreliable. Both the data are reliable. The hard data is also reliable, and soft data is also reliable. And in many cases, the best data available is the soft data, which is observations and other things. Hard data, if you were calculating gains, then hard data is about the quality, the cost, the time. For example, in 1 hour, this person used to settle so many bills. But after the training, in 1 hour, the number has increased by, say, 20%. The cost is less. Our cost in production is reduced. The quality of product has increased, and that can be measured. So gains in hard data is quality, cost, time, which are discernible, which you can like know that yes, it is happening. In cost, the hard data would be cost to design and development programs, because you have paid money for that, so you can easily get that data. Cost of materials, costs of instructors, cost of facilities, cost of travel, lodging and meals. So these are all there, they're factual. And soft data would be in gains that would be increase in sales, increase in profits, increase in quality, increase in production, improved retention, people are not leaving the organizations, improved work culture. Soft data could also be salaries of people involved. Have they given like more, paying more or something, incentives and all. So the second stage is isolating the effects of training, and it is also called evaluation design or research design. In many books, you may find something called evaluation design or research design, which is actually isolating the effects of the training. And here, what we do is we pinpoint the amount of output performance. How much performance has happened, how many people have been trained, and directly as a result of the training program, like they are now trained and they are able to perform well, their output has increased, they are able to produce more. So this is specifically pinpointing it, that because of the training this has happened. For accuracy and credibility of the ROI calculation, this is a must. We must isolate the effects of the training, as these are the activities where because of the training this has been done. For example, there was a MS Office training among the employees. Earlier there was a lot of dependency of officers on the PAs, but now the officers are able to make the documents themselves. They're able to print it, they are able to work on the Excel sheets also, and it is directly related to the training that has been given to them. So that can be isolated. I agree with you that you might be thinking in some trainings it will be difficult to isolate the training effects, isolate the effects of the program, and I totally agree with that, but this is how we go about it. In the model says that we should go about it. Then there are some strategies for isolating the effects of the training program. Now you can have control groups. What are control groups? Actually, what happens is you have a control group who has been given a training, okay? And there is another group of people who have not been given the training. And you compare the difference in their performance. And then you know whether the control group is performing well. And the result will tell you, will help you isolate the effects of the training program. Then you have trend lines, then you have forecasting model. You can make estimates by different people, and we will look at it one by one and identify changes in work climate. So let's have a look at them. And then again, very important is the customer's input. The customer's input must be isolated, because what happened after the training? Has the customer's inputs increased? Are they finding it? What is their feedback? So I told you about the control group. You can have a group which has undergone the training and the other group which has not undergone the training, and compare them after the training. Then trend lines are actually used to project the value specific input and output variables. If training had not been undertaken, like we assume training was not undertaken, then what specific input and outputs were there? The projection is then compared to the actual data after the training. So before the training, how much input and output was there, and after the training. And the difference represents the estimate of the impact of the training. Under certain conditions, this strategy can be an accurate way to isolate the impact of training. It is indeed difficult, but like you will have to be very careful to do it before the training also. If it is not done before the training, then you can't see the trend lines. Then the next strategy to isolate the effects of the training program is forecasting model. Here, when mathematical relationships between input and output variables are known, a forecasting model is used to isolate the effects of the training. The output variable is predicted with the assumption that no training is conducted, and the actual performance of the variable after training is then compared with the forecasted value to estimate the impact of the training. Actually, the trend lines and forecasting model are not very different. They are similar, but here in forecasting model, it is more mathematical relationships. Like you try to calculate everything in terms of monetary benefits. Converting data to monetary values, that is very important if you want to do the ROI. So level 4 data, they are converted to monetary value, and this requires a value to be placed on each unit of data connected with the program. I'm not going into detail of this because that needs a lot of expertise, and that would be another branch of this calculations. So this requires a value to be placed, but nowadays experts are able to put a value of everything. I mean, they are able to monetize almost everything. So you can select a specific strategy, and indeed it is a challenging task. It is difficult to do. So strategies for converting data to monetary values, there are some strategies that are said, and output data is converted to profit, contribution, or cost saving. And the cost of quality is calculated, and quality improvements are directly converted to cost savings. A participant's wages and benefits are used for the value for time. Then there are some historical costs also. Let us have a look at them. Then internal and external experts may be used to estimate a value for an improvement. External databases, research, people sometimes have benchmarks, people have sometimes research and how they have converted into monetary values that are already available, and industry databases can provide information. Then estimates by participants, like estimates in the sense that our performance after the training has increased 30%. It may be a rough estimate, but people who are really doing it, they will be able to tell you actually what has happened to them. The senior management who are watching, the HRG staff, etc. So they will be able to tell. So let us look at it. Strategies for converting to monetary benefits. Output data is converted to profit contribution or cost savings. Output increases are converted to monetary value based on their unit contribution to profit or the unit of cost reduction. These values are readily available in most organizations. The cost of quality is calculated and quality improvements are directly converted to cost saving. This value is also available in many organizations. And for programs in which employee time is saved, like he used to do this work in 1 hour, but now he's able to do it in lesser time, say 40 minutes, then that time saving is also converted into monetary value. And a participant's wages and benefits are used for the value for time. You can calculate the wages per day and then per hour, and you can compare that. Because a variety of programs focus on improving the time required to complete the projects, processes, or daily activities, the value of time becomes an important and necessary issue. Historical costs are those that are used when they are available for a specific variable. In this case, like for strategies for converting to monetary benefits, it is organizational cost data are used to establish the specific values of an improvement. It might be a little difficult for you to understand, but like I'm not going into the micro details of this, and I'm just giving you what it is there. And you may have internal and external experts to estimate a value, and that is the way it should be done. Like you should call or call experts who have an expertise in this field, and external database are available, so you can use that. And then the next thing that is provided is supervisors provide estimates when they're both willing. The participants also provide, supervisors also provide. And this approach is specifically useful when participants are not fully capable of providing this input. It depends upon their knowledge base, their language problem or something, or in situations in which supervisors need to confirm or adjust the participants' estimate. And senior management provides estimate on value of an improvement when they're willing to do so. And this approach is particularly helpful in establishing value for performance. Actually, senior management's inputs are much more important because they're able to give an overview, and they're able to look holistically on the organization. They're not looking at the micro level, they look at the improvement in the organization as a whole. This approach is particularly helpful in establishing value for performance measures that are important. And HRD staff can also give estimates, and that may be used to determine the value of an output data items. So this is the way, these are the some strategies to convert to monetary thing. Then the next stage in our process is tabulating the program costs. So you have to tabulate everything, and this requires again careful consideration. And the tabulating of program costs is done to monitor or develop all the related costs of the program, which is targeted for ROI calculation. Now, what costs are to be tabulated? They include design, development, and cost of the program. And so what is prorated over the expected life of the program. When the training is finished, what will happen? That is what they try to tell. The cost of all the program materials provided to each participants, like even the paper, pencils, stationery, and food and water, and everything should be calculated. For the instructor, facilitator, including preparation and delivery time, how much time they spent, how much money was given to them, what uh, was their like what was paid to them, and that costs of facilities for the training program. You had a hotel room and all that, how much they charged. Then so salaries, travel, lodging, meal for participants, then salaries, plus employee benefit costs of the participants attending the training. Actually, this is also called the opportunity cost. People who were away from the organization and they were attending the training programs, still they were getting the salaries, and but they were not contributing in the work, so that is also calculated. Then administrative and overhead costs. Then the last step is to calculate the ROI, and calculation formula is very simple. First is the cost based return, like program benefits and program costs. Hmm. Then return on investment is actually the net program benefits and program costs. Like you will see the program benefits in total, and then something might be not attributable to the training. So you minus that from the program benefits. So you get the net program benefits, and net program benefits over the program cost, whatever money was spent on the program, that is the ratio, and the percentage of that will give you the return on investment. So that is how it is. And then the last step I said was, the seventh step was identifying the intangible benefits. Now, training does not only give you the monetary benefits, it also gives you a boost in morale of the organization. I don't know whether I have shared a story with you or not earlier. There was a training done at the Satara district. Actually, in the Satara district, in the district administration, there was a problem with the MTS staff. They were not working. They were like they would take their work very lightly. They would come late. They would be shabbily dressed, and they would not contribute much in the organization. So the organization decided to hold a training program for them on motivation. And most of them were not very literate. Like some of them were 8th pass, but most of them were not. Like they were not 10th pass also. So it was difficult to give them a classroom training and make them understand much. So what they chose was, they chose to show them a movie, and through the movie they tried to bring in attitudinal change. So there was a movie that was shown to them, and I will tell you just in a few lines what was the movie about. The movie was about an MTS only, and the movie was specially made for them. Hmm? So enacted and made for them. So there was an MTS in the movie who doesn't like to do work, and when the boss calls, he makes a like excuse that I will he will come very slowly to do the work. When the boss gives him a job, he will take hours to finish that. And then another aspect of his life was that he would come very late in the morning, and he was very shabbily dressed. Like he will wear a kurta pajama, not smartly dressed, which was not clean and not ironed. And he would come, and he was a lackadaisical person. So what happens is, he was given a bashing by the officer, and everybody like scolded him. You're not doing this work, you are not good, and everything. So he becomes very depressed, and he goes and in the lunch time and sleeps under a tree. There was a people tree in the organization, and sleeps under the tree. So in his sleep, he dreams about that the god has appeared, and he's saying, why are you crying, my son? So he says, I'm crying because everybody is teasing me, everybody is being is very angry on me. So that is not a good thing that I like. So the god says, how are you contributing? You are a very important person in your organization, but are you contributing? Then the god says, come at 9 in the morning, take a bath in the morning, wear clean clothes, and do all then see the result. So next day he comes very well in the morning, and he is working very well. So everybody is appreciating him. Oh, look at him, he's looking so smart. And everybody is saying, you are very good. And this changes his life. And then he starts doing everything in a good way. So this was the movie. But the effect on the people in the organization was phenomenal. They were they identified themselves. They said that my organization thinks that I'm important enough to be given this kind of training, and their moral boosted up, and their job performance improved, really improved. This is a real experiment. And so the job, they found themselves being recognized in the organization, and that gave them a job satisfaction. So increased job satisfaction is very important. Trainings not only provide you knowledge, skill, and attitude, they help in that, enhancing that, but they also provide a person a job satisfaction, that yes, my job is being recognized, and it is, my job is very important for the organization. It gives increased organizational commitment. Yes, my organization is spending so much money on me, and we went to such a training, and some people don't even don't get a chance to travel also, but they are able, if they are able to travel, that is also a benefit. I'm not saying that all the trainings should involve travel, but some trainings do, so it increases their organizational commitment. It improves the teamwork in the organization, and improved customer service, especially in the attitudinal training in the hospital industry, etc., or other industries too, of course. Improved customer service is a thing that organizations aim at. Then the reduced complaints, they are also intangible benefits. Reduced conflicts. If the person knows how to handle that complaint, how to handle customer, then the complaints would definitely reduce. Reduced conflicts, and that is a very important thing in the organization. If you are able to reduce the conflicts, the production will improve, the performance will improve. The above data are not converted to monetary values. Hmm? There may be many more than these. I have listed here only a few, and we can't convert them into the monetary values, but they may be very, very important. And of course, they are subjective. And these may be even more evaluable. These may be more valuable than the tangible benefits. What you get out of the intangible benefits, that is priceless for any organization. So that is how we identify the intangible benefits. Now, what does the success of the ROI process depend upon? It depends upon how you plan the ROI process. I showed you the 7 steps. Planning has to be done before starting even the first step. So the planning is to be done through 2 documents, and the first document is data collection, plan for all the 4 levels. That includes what kinds of survey or questionnaires you will use, who will make them, do you need an expert organization who will make it for you, do you need people from the outside who will conduct the surveys or questionnaires, because if your own people are doing it, this is not a one-man job. And if only you in your own organization are doing it, then will people take you seriously or not? So that depends. So if it is an expert organization and a formal organization, then it is a little different. So then you have to have an ROI analysis plan. You have collected all the data, but how do I analyze it? So these are the 2 things that need to be planned even before the first step is taken. So I will end my session here, and in the next sessions, we will talk about other things. We have finished all the models, and maybe the case study method we will do in the next session. And other things, I will do the training audit also, and see what else is left out in your course. So thank you very much for listening to me. And if you have any questions, you can post them, and maybe you can ask them right now. So we will, I will just stop sharing. Yeah. So that was, I think, a very heavy session today, but we will talk about other things in the next sessions. So we have finished 3 models. So I think can we call it a day if there are no questions?
Ma'am, one request,
Yeah,
Arpita. Ma'am, can we see an example of this ROI model? I know it's difficult, but in a simpler terms, maybe next time if you can share the cost benefit ratio part in particular, how we can convert and.
okay. I think it will take a lot of time. So who is it speaking?
Ma'am, Arpita.
Arpita. It will take a lot of time, Arpita, but I will try to finish it in 10 minutes. Because if you go through the example, what I have given you is only an outline. If you go through the example, like all the steps would be, you mean only the last one, the cost benefit.
Yes, how to convert. Or
I
ma'am,
think
if
that would be manageable, but just calculation part, I don't think it means anything unless you have the data.
ma'am, even if an email can be given of all the steps, that will be very useful.
I will share a document if you wish.
Yeah, that'll be nice, ma'am. It'll be very useful.
I'll do that. Hmm? Anything else?
Good evening, ma'am. This is Varang. I agree with Arpita because there are certain things which we will not be able to understand until and unless we have an example. Because these are things which, as a trainer, it's a very essential component for each one of us, understanding how well our training went and what how it has been benefit to the organization. So an example, will be very essential for all of us, ma'am.
Varyank, if I will try to give what Arpita is saying, but as a trainer, your focus should be more on the first two levels. Of course, you should be interested in the fifth level also, the ROI and all that, but it's rare like you will be called upon to do that, or because the organizations generally hire experts, and I haven't seen many organizations doing the fifth level uh, evaluation really. But that is all right. It's you have a right to know, and we will share the information in the next
I agree with you, ma'am. But the point is, when you go for a discussion or go for an interview, the first thing they ask is, how do you do an ROI?
session.
and
Okay.
and for certain things as a knowledge, and in case if they don't do it, it's fine. But then as a professional, if we do it ourselves for our training or for our own vertical, so it will be good, sir. So I head a training division, ma'am. So I have 13 trainers under me, 12, 13 trainers under me across India. So it will be good for me to know how do I evaluate in case if we need to show, how well the training has went and what changes that they have, brought to the organization. So it will be a beneficial for each trainers to, represent the worthiness of their training that has helped organization to grow.
Okay. Warren, did you attend any of the sessions earlier too? Like you have attended all the sessions?
Unfortunately, ma'am, not every session I've tried attending. This is the third session I've attended for you, ma'am.
This is the first session that you have
Third,
attended.
third, third,
Third
third, ma'am.
session.
Third of
Okay.
yours.
All right. So in the earlier sessions we talked about, but the videos will be available, so that would not be a problem with you, Vara, because ICD people make available the videos of every session. So the evaluation is everywhere in the like during the training, before the training, during the training, after the training, and ROI is a very specialized thing, like that is not the only evaluation. Okay, so as an evaluator you will be doing all the evaluations, but I will definitely I'll share the uh, what do you say, the handout also
Yes,
that is
ma'am.
available with me,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then I will, like, we will try to give it with an example. I will try that next
Sure,
in
ma'am.
the next,
Sure, ma'am.
but I
Sure,
don't
ma'am.
want to spend too much time on that because my focus here is to complete your course that will help you to pass the exam in this ISTD diploma.
Certainly, ma'am.
And so
Certainly.
I must be able to cover all the things because many other people may not be interested so much in just the ROI, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will try to spend some time on that, but
Sure, ma'am.
then I will share a handout.
Ma'am, is it possible that if we can connect with you over the email, so that in
Yes,
case if there is,
definitely. I will, if there's a chat available, I'll just write down my email and you can
sure, ma'am.
email to me. Okay, I will just write my email ID. You can note that down.
Right, ma'am.
Ma'am, is the program benefit and net program benefit the same term, or there is a difference in
No,
the
they're different.
in
They're
deriving the
different.
formula?
They're different. Program benefits is the overall benefit that you're seeing, and the benefits may be due to some of other things. You have to take out the net benefit, like minus the things that are contributing to the benefit. That is the difference. Okay. So my email ID is trainer.mb.2010@gmail.com. Okay, so I'll be very happy to connect with you, and anybody can email me. It might take me like a little while to respond. I may not be able to respond immediately because I'm busy during the day. It's mostly in the evenings that I'm able to look at my email, but I will definitely respond. Is that okay?
Excuse me, ma'am. This is
Are you
Neha.
not able to see my
Yes,
chat?
ma'am.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
cannot.
Now it is visible, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
Uh,
enter the thing. Okay, I just wrote it and kept it because somebody
Sure, ma'am.
was talking about something.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
yeah, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. This is Neha
Ah,
from
Neha.
Mumbai chapter. Ma'am, from the exam point of view, how important is ROI to understand?
I don't know actually. I don't even know who will set the paper, but it was in your course, the ROI model. So I thought it will not be justifiable if I didn't talk about the process also. So that is why I included the process. So hardly one question about it, I think. I
Okay.
don't know. Matlab, like if I were making the paper, then I would put a question of 5 marks or something like that. That is the only value it would have, I think. I am not setting the paper, so I'm not sure. But with my experience and my guess, I'm telling you. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Because the curriculum is quite vast. And generally in India, we are not doing the 5th level.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. This is
Good
Nisha here.
evening.
Ma'am, actually, I had reserved a question for the for today's class. It was connected to the session where you ended last time. So
Tell me, tell me.
this is regarding the Kirkpatrick model and the Cairo model. I have a small doubt which is bothering me. Is it that the Kirkpatrick model is all? I mean, I am aware. Okay, yeah, the Kirkpatrick is always at the post training pay. It's always at the end. But the Cairo model,
Kirkpatrick model.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And the Cairo model, according to me, my understanding is very much applicable at all the stages, like very well, because at the content you can evaluate your inputs. So is it something of that sort? Is it more
I
comprehensive?
think it is the other way round. The Cairo model is more specific to the management training, and it evaluates mostly the training connected thing. Whereas the Kirkpatrick model gives you a way to measure the results also, whether the training is translated into application at work level or not. And I think that is more applicable in Kirkpatrick model. But actually it is your approach. You can choose any of the models. That is different people's approach to tackle the same problem. So you can't say this model is better or the other one is better. And most of the organizations are uh, taking the Kirkpatrick model as the specimen. Like they take Kirkpatrick model and based, there are many variations also, people do vary it. And in Kirkpatrick model, what people are generally doing it, they do upside down. Like they first write down the results they want to achieve, then going to see what work performance is happening and where do we need to give training, and then do a real training needs analysis, and then go for the next three things, like next two things. Like it can be done the upside down way also. There's somebody, Deepak Sharma, who is writing, ma'am, can you explain the third one with one example, please? What do you mean by third one? Third pointer with an example? Deepak, are you listening?
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you Deepak?
So, yes, this is Deepak.
Yeah, tell me, Deepak, which third pointer are you talking about?
It was, you were explaining 7 models or 7
steps for
Yeah,
the ROI process.
that's correct. So,
And you want me to go to the third step?
third one. I
All
have
right.
written it.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm sorry I didn't see the chat earlier,
No problem.
but it's okay. I will share the screen and we'll just have a look at it, quick look at it. Mhm.
Okay, the one that says isolate the effects of training from
Okay,
other
isolate the
positive
training
and
effects.
negative
Okay.
performance influencers.
Yeah. This is the model. I'm talking about here, this, no? The third, convert data to monetary, isolate the effects of the training. That's the second. Are you talking about this or convert data to monetary value?
So, it was, and then 7 steps were there. It said, I have written it, ROI can be calculated by 7-stage process. Collect
It can be,
pre-programmed
yes.
data. And the third one was isolate the effects of training from other positive and negative performance influencers.
Yeah, okay. You want to talk about the isolate the effects of the training. Yes, tell me, what do you want in this?
So when we say isolate the effects of training from other positive and negative performance influencers, so what are those positive and negative performance influencers? And if we
example, Deepak, somebody underwent a training on a skill-based item. For example, there was a skill on preparing some coding to be done. Okay. And the positive influence would be like when he went to the organization, they took a better program in which those things were not required anymore, and the program automatically did it. Like the program, you didn't need to code for that. There was like a macro, if you have seen, people do make macros to run the program. So that was automatically done. So that is a positive impact. You cannot attribute it to the training. His performance is improved because of the betterment in the software, not because he is become better at coding. The negative would be, for example, the organization did not buy that program on which he was trained. They took another program which did not have such features where he can use his skills. Okay, so that is a negative influence. He could not perform better, not because of the training was not good, but because there was something other than training that did not allow him to do it. I think Neha Karya is raising
Yes,
her
ma'am.
hand. Neha, tell me, Neha.
Ma'am, I wanted to understand that how is it decided on which model to be used for analyzing for the evaluation purpose, and when to use it, and how can one decide on which model to be used?
It's very difficult to tell that, Neha, because it is an organizational decision. And if you are really going with your, like you are coming with proposals and organizations are saying that we will use this model, then you will have to look at the pros and cons and what you really want to do. If you really want to do the return on investment, you are a profit oriented organization, and if you want that the organization's every money spent on training should be calculated, then of course Jack J Phillips should be the model, and ultimately that is the best model. If you do not calculate the return on investment, that you are doing training as a matter of faith, you're not really doing training to improve performance. But it depends upon what you want and what the senior management wants. So it could be that you have to choose, you're doing evaluation just to choose between 3-4 training programs. Okay, so maybe the Cairo model would be better, because your purpose here is only to choose the better program which is matching with the training needs that you have identified. So maybe that could be. So it depends upon your requirement and the money that you can spend. If you want to do if you have a lot of money, then go in for the ROI model.
Okay.
And if you don't have so much money, your organization doesn't have so much money, then maybe the Kirkpatrick model can be done, or maybe the Cairo model can be done. Cairo model will be easily manageable. The result level at the Kirkpatrick model is again a little difficult to manage. But still, Kirkpatrick model by far is the most popular because it has been now improved a lot. Huh? Many organizations still do not do training, return on investment in training. They don't do.
Okay. Ma'am, just last question, please. When we talk about the fifth step of ROI, which says that it is very expensive. So just correct me if I'm wrong. So is it because a lot of data collection and lot of surveys and lot of in-depth information is needed? Is that the reason it is expensive?
That is one reason. And the other reason is you will need help of experts. So you will need to hire people, maybe organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers or Kodo or other organizations which charge you a lot of money, and it is really costly.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Any other questions? So we call it a day today. Good night and thank you very much for listening to me. Let me look here. Does anybody have any other question? Okay. So everybody has my email ID now? Okay. Thank you. So you have a YouTube channel link also here. So you can see the video again if you want. If you want anything, I think they're sharing the PowerPoint also with you. So it will not be a problem. Okay, then good night, everybody.